Mr. Latour?
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you. Well, Doctor, I guess I'll start out at the end, the kind of the last thing that you just said. I mean, you generated a report about this whole topic, right?
That is correct.
And I think that's your report's in evidence, right?
I believe it is, yes.
I believe it's Defendant's Exhibit 6.
It is.
Nowhere in that report do you say what you just told us, right?
That is not reasonably medically certain. I say exactly that.
You say that this is the most likely cause of what made Austin Thompson do this.
What I said, and I was very clear to limit my opinion, is that while I do not have no, I didn't say it was most likely. I said it's the only reason I can come up with, which makes it by definition the most likely reason. I mean,
where do you say that it's the only? Just point me to that in your
It's
report.
the only reason I provided.
If you'll show me in your report where you say that is the only reason, so that I can follow along with you in Defendant's Exhibit 6.
Well, I don't know that I said that, but obviously if I had other reasons, I would put them in there, wouldn't I?
Okay. Well, I'm going to ask you the question, sir, but the question that I asked you, did you say that in your report? And you said, well, no, I didn't say that. I said it's the only. So what I'm asking you is for you to show me in Defendant's Exhibit 6 where you say it is the only thing that could have caused this, in my opinion, is this medicine and his reaction to it.
I'm not sure I said that in the report exactly like that, but you're not reading the report correctly if you don't think that's what it says. I mean, language has meaning, right?
It does, right?
I mean, I can read the summation if you want into the record.
I asked you if you said that in your report. You told me that you said that it was the only. You in fact corrected me and said, no, I say it's the only.
No.
I'm just asking you where in the report it says that it is the only reasonable explanation.
I didn't say that, and I didn't exactly testify to that to here. That words matter. What I said is that those other typical reasons were removed to my satisfaction, and I think I specifically said, but it could still be the case. There may be information we don't have.
Okay. We'll move on.
But I agree with what you said, though. What you said about the language in the report, that's correct.
Okay.
I'll give you that.
Because words matter, right?
Words matter.
All right. And in fact,
And I stand by all of mine, every last one.
Okay. And in fact, you said that you ruled out everything that would have been, everything else that could have been the cause.
To my satisfaction.
Right. And so the likely outcome of that is that there could have been something else that was the cause of this, right?
Oh, I agree with that entirely, yeah.
Right. Because when you boil it all down to the nuts and bolts of this whole thing, you don't know why he did what he did, correct?
I said I don't know why.
Right.
Yeah, I did say that in the report.
In fact, none of the experts that talk to him can say why he did this.
That
right?
is very much correct.
And the one thing that you are saying...
Well, I think I need to
I'm going to need one person to talk at a time because the court reporter
understood.
shut down both voices.
I didn't finish
his question.
Yeah.
Let him finish the answer.
Was there something else
There
you wanted
was.
to say?
I can't give the answer to why this happened, and that's pretty unusual in these cases. That's what I was trying to say. It's unusual and frustrating to be unable to ascertain, because in typical cases, you can nail it down pretty quick usually.
And in typical cases, you are not dealing with someone that has shot themselves in the forehead with a double-aught buckshot that have, as you described, catastrophic damage to his frontal lobe.
Well, I've seen plenty of them where they're dead, but you can still sort it out from their pre-event history because they leave a trail. They always leave a trail, always.
Right, and when they leave a trail, some of that is you have to take what they're telling you. If they tell you why they did something, you kind of have to consider that, right?
Yeah, I mean, it means a lot more when they're telling other people why they're about to do it. But sure, I agree with that.
Well, and you talked a little bit about, Doctor, the change in the way the people are developing and dealing with people in this post-COVID society, right?
I did.
And that also could prevent or cause issues in finding that trail in current, right? Because we're dealing with less people.
Sir, I think that you're right. Now, I think his relationship with his family perhaps healthier than even I realized. But you're right. COVID was a unique time in the history of this country in that it severely curtailed communications between human beings at every level.
And especially if the people that you're usually having these sorts of red flags come from are the people who are dealing with them, their friends, right? That's oftentimes the people who will come forward.
Friends, right? Or teachers or family, anybody. Could be anybody.
But friends is a big source of it.
Well, I would agree.
Right. Because we'll tell our friends things that we won't tell our family or our teachers, right?
Well, I'm sure that's nearly universally true, yes.
Right, okay. And so if all of your friends are online and there's no way to track down who those friends are, it makes it more difficult to rule out the fact that he was telling someone about all of these things and these issues, right? If you can't find those people.
Yeah, I agree. Like the fact that we don't have him to tell us, and the fact that there are limitations because, and this continues to be a problem with groups in this age group, in that they don't have the same kinds of social relationships that I did growing up, or that most kids did pre-COVID. So it changes the dynamic. It also changes the interpretation of, say, someone's lack of close friendships having sleepovers, because they just don't much anymore.
Well, so, I mean, it depends on the person, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, there are certainly people who are still out there having sleepovers and have friends in the neighborhood that they're dealing with.
Agreed. I don't want to overstate it. It's a pattern, but it's not a rule.
But you said something that I want to ask you about. You say, when you referred to the defendant's familial relationship, and when you were answering my question, you said something to the effect of, was even better than you thought.
Yeah.
Something to that effect.
Yeah.
I know I'm misquoting you, but
yeah.
Why is that?
Because I had long considered, I didn't know his mom very well, but I've dealt with many, many, many people that have struggled with postpartum depression, and it can affect bonding, and it can affect the nature of parenting and relationships. And now, the more I've gotten to know her through her and her testimony and evidence that's been presented and things that I've read, it's like she clearly did have postpartum depression with both kids, but she's a good mom, right? And so I think that the fact that Austin and James allied closer with Dad wasn't because of her; it's because of Dad, and they shared they shared interests,
right? And you know, we're certainly not here to throw stones or make judgments on the family members, but But one of the things that you considered heavily in this, and you characterized him as potentially an unreliable narrator, are the things that the defendant told you, right?
That's also true.
And things that you read that he had told Zach Rouse and some other folks, right?
That is correct as well.
And in fact, when he spoke about his relationship with his mother, it sounds more distant than what his mother and his father are telling us. Is that fair? It
doesn't, actually. I mean, what they've told them, but in his discussions with me, he's unequivocal about that.
Right. That's his discussions with you. I'm asking about his discussions with Zach Rao.
Oh, yes. And I think it's a matter of degrees. He is closer, was closer with Dad. So it's a shades of gray kind of situation, but I don't disagree with your description.
I mean, in fact, at some point when he's talking in one of his interviews, he kind of talks about his relationship with his father and how they would go hunting and do all of those things. And he gives some stories about his relationship with his mom, right?
Yes.
And I don't, kind of like, as you said, it's difficult to say this in front of people, but for the record, I mean, at certain points, he kind of denigrates her job to some degree, right?
He does. Well, he did. He never did to me, but he did.
Right.
Yeah.
And he talks about the fact that she wasn't really a part of his life.
And yet I don't know that that's true from a psychiatric perspective.
Well, you don't know that it's true from a reality perspective, but
his perception.
His perception of it may be that she was not a part of his life.
Sure.
And that's a big deal in a person, right? In a child.
From a psychiatric perspective, yeah. I mean, listen, it's about as common as it gets, especially with adolescents. Mm-hmm. Show me an adolescent who goes through and doesn't have problems with a parent growing up. It won't me. So, but I hear what you're saying. Don't disagree with that.
Right. And I guess one of the things that I've has struck me about your testimony is whenever you're presented with these issues, the internet searches, they're not really a big deal.
They're not.
They're not really a big deal in your opinion, and I hear you. His relationship with his parents, not as bad as he says it is, so that's not a big deal to you. The note doesn't make sense to you, so that's not a big deal to you.
Oh, it is a big deal to me.
Not a big deal in understanding why this happened.
It might be. Yeah, actually.
Okay.
Let's say that this disorganization in content is so bizarre because he's in a dissociative state, right?
Okay.
Then it matters. You didn't. I'm sorry. I'm talking and you didn't ask a question, so I'll be quiet.
Okay. I guess my point that I'm getting to is, though, when you're looking at these things, is it not, and I'm not saying that you didn't do this, but is it not the practice that you have to take all the individual pieces and look at them as a whole?
That is absolutely correct, and that's exactly why they're not a big deal. So now I'll answer that question.
Well, you did just answer my question. And
well,
I'm gonna
but I need to tell you why.
Well, I didn't ask you why, but I will ask you why in just a moment.
Okay.
Okay. So what I'm going to say from that is, we have to look at it all in the big picture, and you said correct.
That is correct.
Context matters, as you've said multiple times.
Yes,
right?
sir.
Okay, and so the context that we also need to look at this through is that the defendant killed 5 people and shot 2 more, correct?
That is correct.
And so while an internet search may not be a big deal for a generalized search, right? Just searching a mass shooting once or twice, that may not be a red flag for you. But if you search out a specific action, shooting someone in the head with a .22 rifle and cutting their voice box, and then you go and do that very thing, does that not change the context in which you need to look at that search?
It matters, but it doesn't change the conclusion given the entirety of the context. You still haven't asked why.
Right. Okay. Well, why do you not feel that?
The assessment really, everything I do as a forensic psychiatrist really revolves around the shades of the proportionality. The things that you're talking about are not unusual when we compare them to other kids that age. Those searches, the numbers of the searches, the things that were happening, all of those sorts of things. Now, I'll agree. If we take those texts, the searches you're talking about, out and put them on paper, and I don't know much else about the scenario, then it matters. But then if I think in terms of the other searches unrelated to this, and I agree, to the extent there are searches that in any way mimic what happened in this case, they're countered by other searches that could be problematic in their context but have nothing to do with this. But that's the thing, is that the why is that other kids do the same stuff, and almost none of them do anything, right? It's the proportionality. The people who commit mass homicide from a typical perspective, that's almost all you see.
Right,
it's all you get.
But let me ask you this, and I think it's important because, again, words matter. You put air quotes on typical, because there is no typical, right?
Yeah, some of them are. So an atypical mass homicide would be one during a dissociative episode, right?
Or someone who commits a mass homicide but doesn't show all of the signs leading up to it. That would be atypical, right?
All things are possible, but that degree of atypicality, according to your expert, does not exist.
Okay.
Doesn't exist. I'm not going that far, to be honest with you. I'd hesitate to say anything 100% in terms of mental health, but my understanding is that she said you see this pattern always.
I'm not asking about her, I'm asking about you. And so you say you won't go that far, right?
Right. So, and I agree with you. It could be, in the universe of possibilities, could there be some data out there that we just don't know that would account for and explain this in a way that makes it look more typical? Absolutely. Could it be the case that a person who is in general functioning very well, certainly within the sort of confines of normal teenage development in the United States, in this community, suddenly decides after coming home from school to write this kind of, it's strange, I'm not asking you to agree, but it's a strange note for him, and then kill his brother and kill all these other people for no reason? Because that's what we're talking about, no reason.
Well, but could a reason not be that you're interested in killing people and want to see what that experience is like?
Those individuals, yes, and those individuals would have high degrees of psychopathy, and they would universally have other trajectory and a pattern of cruelty to animals, other psychopathic conduct, behavioral difficulties at school, all the time, every time, and he just has none.
So you're willing to say 100% that time?
Well, that's a very limited answer you gave me. Those people that are that psychopathic would have a tremendous difficulty hiding that from the world for 15 years. Now, could it happen? You're right. I'll back off. I'll go to 99.9% of the time, because there always could be an outlying case. I'll concede that. I just don't think that.
Okay. Since you've talked about the note and how strange it is, I want to ask you about that a little bit. And you would agree that the information that you receive affects the information that you are able to output.
Good. You got it.
Right.
Yes.
And so the more information that you have about something, the better and the more accurate information you have, the more accurate results you will get. In an opinion.
Yeah, I think all information is better. Yeah, more is better.
Okay. And so I was trying to take some notes, and I think one of the reasons that I jotted down that you were concerned about this note and its ability to make sense of it, or the nature and the style of the writing, and the bizarre reasons, in your words, that he gave.
Yes, compared to who he was before that day. Yes, but I agree.
Well, so then I want to ask you, you've said multiple times throughout your report and multiple times while you were testifying that you don't know who Austin was before then because you didn't get to talk to him, right?
Didn't say that. What they did in this case is his psychological autopsy. I know who he is now directly. It is not possible to infer from what we see today with he is by definition a different person. That's not the same thing as saying that we can't build a picture psychiatrically of who he was based on all the stuff that we've been talking about today. Teachers, school records, descriptions of his family life. So you still get a picture, but he's still not the same person.
But you don't get the best picture because your information is limited, correct?
Which is partly why I've limited my final opinion. Yes.
Right. But that would also affect everything else that you are opining about, correct? To some degree. I
mean, I may not be following the line of questioning, but I don't find that objectionable. In these cases, I have involved in cases where the perpetrator is deceased, right? And so you're definitely limited in that regard. In this case, it's unusual that he had such a catastrophic brain injury that he is at his core a different personality now. So I'm not examining him at the offense in the same way that I can with other survivors who don't blow a large portion of their brain away.
Right. So the letter, in your report, you write a lot about the letter, and you express multiple times in your analysis, and in fact attribute it to one of the concerns you have about his mental state at the time is the date that is at the top of the document, correct?
Yeah, and it was wrong. I mean, I was wrong about that.
You were wrong about that, right?
Well, I mean, I'm not wrong. It's written wrong, but I had no way of knowing that somebody else had a bad day and wrote with the wrong date on there. I don't know who put that on there, to be honest.
Right. So the letter that you got has a different date written on it than the date that the defendant wrote on it, correct?
I didn't know that until yesterday, and I didn't know he actually wrote a date on it, but the date on mine says 23.
You didn't know that he actually wrote a date on it?
I only have this copy. It's the only one I have.
I get that, but you write in your report multiple times about Austin writing a date on it.
Because the one I have did have him writing a date. So I was provided this document as his note. The top of it is a line that has a date on it. It's not flagged as anything, so I wrote in the report based on that note. The fact about this being not his writing at all was not known at the time I wrote this report.
Right. I guess my question to you was, you attributed that date at the top to Austin.
Oh, I did. At the time I wrote the report, I absolutely did. Yes, and I was wrong.
Right, and we now know that Austin did. You now know that Austin did write a date on it, but he wrote the correct date.
Oh no, that's right. I'm sorry if I didn't understand your question. Yes, he didn't write this.
Right.
Yeah, I got you.
And so that goes back to that level of information that you get put in affects what comes out, right?
Well, yeah, I know the saying you're thinking about, and so yeah, if incorrect information comes in, then that can lead to incorrect interpretations.
Right.
Sure.
Or partial information.
Incomplete information, which is always. I don't know that I've ever been in a criminal case where I had all the data, but yeah, I agree with that.
Okay. And at multiple points in this, well, let me ask it this way. You talked about the reasons in the note not making sense, right? Or being bizarre.
That is correct, yes.
But when you look at the note, he's giving reasons for what he did, correct?
They are reasons, and they're not great sentences, but you can interpret what the words mean in the sequence they're written. They are reasons. They're not typical reasons, but they are reasons.
Well, I mean, you did say that envio-terrorism is a real thing that has caused people to go do mass shootings before, right?
Oh, it is. Well, I don't know about that, but people do become exceedingly focused on it. I just don't find that he did.
I'm not asking that portion of this.
Yeah.
What I'm asking is, the reason he gave is a logical reason that has in fact caused others to become radicalized or have these fixations, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And when you talked about who he's talking to, he talks to his parents and leaves notes for his parents, right?
Yes.
He actually leaves a note as to kind of directed to the police with like a parents cops.
Right.
Right?
Right.
He talks about why he's doing what he does. He talks about why he felt he needed to kill his brother, correct?
Because he was in his way? Okay, yes, he did.
Correct. Now, you may not agree with his reasons or have concerns about his reasons, but he gave reasons, correct?
He gave reasons, but what the rest of that I don't agree with what you said. It's not that I don't agree with the reasons. It's that the reasons don't agree with his life. And I understand his life as best I can, and it doesn't fit. It doesn't fit. There are people who might go so far as to kill a family member because they just irritated them getting in their way. Go ahead.
Let me ask you this about that. Will you find in the letter what the actual language he uses as to why he felt he needed to kill James?
I killed James because he would get in my way.
Okay. When you're looking at the context of all of this, correct? Could you not conclude from that he's saying James would try to stop me from doing what I'm about to do?
Well, so while I think in the abstract you could say that that's true, but if you put that in the rest of even the circumstance of the crime itself, it just doesn't make sense. So what you're doing is sort of the opposite of what a forensic examiner does. You're trying to look at each little fact. I'm not being critical, but little fact, and ignore the context, which is, yeah, but if that were the case, you're an expert, and I agree that there would have been clear evidence of something happening. It doesn't just pop out anywhere. So if the theory is that somehow James knew that he was going to do something bad, but then he goes to play a video game, I'll say all things are possible, but your imagination's better than mine, I think. So I just don't see that that's likely.
I appreciate that. What I'm asking you, though, is if you look at the context of this document, and the context of the document being the defendant is preparing to go out and commit mass murder, a spree shooting.
Yes.
And in order to do that, we know that the defendant walked out of his home with a giant backpack and a giant long rifle, having changed his clothes into camouflage to go out into his neighborhood kill 5 people, shoot 2 others, and take money from his home, if he's leaving that home, is it not logical to conclude that if his brother sees him, he's going to say, Austin, what are you doing? You don't need to go out there with a rifle and try to stop him.
Oh, so if I ignore all the other context of this and take just that statement and the sequence of events you just described, sure, it could lead to that. But it's
what
still...
am I asking you to ignore, Doctor?
That nothing else about his assessment would suggest... we still haven't provided any reason why he would have done this. There's no reason in terms of red flags which would have led him to do this. So while you can interpret it in that manner, I still have to look at the big picture. I still agree with Dr. Gibson that when people kill their sibling because he's going to get in the way of my mass homicide that I'm planning out, it's universally the case, nearly universally the case, that either beforehand usually or in retrospect, the clear impetus for that emerges. And marinating in the violent impulse. If you have it, I don't have it.
In your opinion, the internet searches are not enough, correct?
They don't match the characteristic of, and I've done these digital footprint analyses. It doesn't match. It doesn't fit, in my opinion.
In your opinion?
Yes, sir.
And that's what we're dealing with right now.
That is correct.
Opinion, correct?
Right. And can I be wrong? Sure. My wife would tell you routinely, yes, I could be wrong. But these are my opinions.
I guess what I'm getting with to this point of the letter is that if you look at the letter in and of itself, okay, let's ignore your opinion about the search and the history and all that. The letter on its face is not illogical or giving reasons that are just contrary to reality or any possibility that is what the defendant was feeling at that moment in his life.
So to answer that, I will say yes. If I do ignore everything else, could someone write this and this is the accurate reasoning behind their doing it? Yes, but that's a dangerous thing to say because I don't do that as a psychiatrist. It doesn't fit with him, and it doesn't even. It's not. Did he do it because of climate change? Did he do it? If I ignore everything else, you could say that this letter could explain why somebody would do something like this. But that would be poor practice for a forensic psychiatrist to do that.
One of the big concerns you have, or I don't know, I describe big to you. One of the concerns that you pointed out are the misspellings that are in there.
Well, I don't know if that's a big concern. It's just noteworthy for somebody that's floating a 3.8 GPA.
Right. I mean, did you look at his internet searches?
Oh no, but I've got more than 3.8 when I was in school, and our internet searches routinely are misspelled. I just can't type good.
So you didn't look at his internet searches?
Yeah, I did. I'm just saying, yes, I did, and I know that there are misspellings in there, and I just that doesn't attach to a finding of being a risk factor for mass homicide. Nor does misspellings in this. It's just another little data point. He wasn't typing this though; he was writing it. So.
And he misspelled by leaving out an E?
Yeah, and there was one other one I thought too.
Regrets?
Yeah.
That's a common misspelled word though, right?
Not okay, if you say so. Sure.
You would agree, though, that if you're looking at that note just as a note, it addresses points that would often be questions that people would have about why. He's attempting, or at least listed reasons as to why he did what he did, correct?
Yes. I mean, I agree with that. If you just take this, you can interpret this as providing sort of different reasons for doing so.
He addresses people that suicide notes and or notes about a manifesto or a mass murder note might be left behind. It addresses people that would likely be reading that note and in his family and the police, correct?
I think that is fair to say, yes.
Okay. he is very specific in times and as far as giving ranges of times for when things happen and where he got items from, correct?
True. That is true.
He says he got the bullet from Cabela's. You can't disprove that, right?
Oh, no, I wasn't at Cabela's, so I don't know. I mean, it would be very helpful to know that a place would... It would be helpful to know that it's true, but I can't say that it's not true.
The question about suicidal, he says he's not suicidal there, right?
Correct.
But he does talk about knowing that what the likely outcome of all of this is, right?
I think so, yes.
And at some point, when asked, I don't remember exactly where it was, but when asked why he shot himself, he said, because I don't want to go to jail, right?
He told me that as well, yes.
So his statements to you now about that issue are consistent with what he's saying in that letter, correct?
Oh, the reason for shooting himself?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, that part is very consistent, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So part of it's good, part of it's bad, in your opinion, as far as consistency and making sense.
No, wow. So no, when I say that there are inconsistencies, that's different than saying that everything is inconsistent. Psychiatry is a million shades of gray, proportionality matters, context matters, and so I'm having difficulty communicating that in a way because the questions are about undoing that in a way that makes the conclusions very unreliable, in my view.
When talking about the search history, just in general, you've told us time and time again that they are not a red flag for you, fair?
They are not for me.
But you've also testified that you practice outside of this forensic field, correct?
Oh, yes. I mean, clinically, you mean? Yes.
Clinically.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Right, so you see patients.
I do.
And if a patient presented to you and told you, I'm 15 and I'm searching torture photos of ISIS and torture techniques, and I'm constantly on, I think it's Crime USA, which is a website of violent videos and things like that, would you ignore that, or would you take some action in that?
No. I would definitely explore the reasons for that. Now, I've got to tell you that what you just described is more than common. We don't have to like it. I don't have to approve of it, but it's as common can get. So, no, absolutely. If I was there and was aware of that, I would want to explore, well, what's that all about? I was like, well, I'm going to be a forensic guy. I really want to be one of those guys on that TV show. So the reasons do matter. The drive for it does matter. And whether we want to accept this or not, this sort of focus on violent things that go boom, guns, amongst teenage youth is just not rare. I'll just leave it there.
That's fair. But my next question for you, though, is why would you explore that with that person?
To make sure that the context wasn't that this had become the preeminent focus of his life. That's the proportionality. Was he doing it to the extent that he was letting every other aspect of his life? And when your expert and I talk about this, when this happens, it becomes all they care about. They focus on it, and there's an escalating trajectory of them immersing themselves more and more in very unhealthy online content. I think most every teenage boy is exposed to some of that because they seek it out. It's the ones that see it and then that's all they want. That's the problem. That's the area of exploration, to find out what is the meaning of this? Why are you doing this? Are they doing it because their friends are doing it and that's gross? That's different than, I want to do that.
Is it common for young people to write down bomb-making materials and hide them in chapstick?
I don't know that I would say that, but it is not uncommon for young males to I'm trying not to self-disclose here, but little kids do things with fireworks, and we experiment with things that I'm lucky I still have 10 digits. So it depends again on what you mean. If somebody's building a trigger and they're trying to accumulate ammonium nitrate, that's different than drawing a picture of something. And I know about the chapstick. I asked about chapstick. I have no idea why he put the drawing in the chapstick, but the drawing itself was.
Could the reason that he put the drawing in the chapstick is so that nobody would find the drawing?
Yeah, but I don't know why it matters, to be quite honest.
You don't know why having a recipe for a bomb would matter for a 15-year-old?
I'm not sure I would go so far as that, but so it's uncommon for a male to do that and stick it in a chapstick. It's not uncommon for them to look at such things. It is not.
It is uncommon for them to look at such things and then go out and commit mass murder?
Well, are we talking correlation or causation?
I'm not asking about the cause. I'm asking, I guess, correlation then.
So is it usual for somebody to draw something that is about a bomb and then go on a shooting spree? I don't know that I would say I would say that most scenarios of individuals who do things like that never commit an act of violence.
Fair.
But could it be seen in someone who did commit an act of violence? Sure. I would think it might be because they built a bomb, but sure.
Well, let's take that same event for the internet searches,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, you internet search and you looking at these things like how to make suppressors and where the most effective places to shoot someone might be, and then you go and do those things. Is that common for people who look up those things?
It is not common for the people to look up those things to do those things.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. But it's not something to ignore when they do.
I agree. I'm not ignoring it. It's much more common for people to look up those things and then do those things when that's all they're doing. When all they're doing is they're maniacally focused on that. Right. So then it's a different question, and I would very much agree with you. Then that would be a concern. If I saw a kid doing that in my office, I'm bringing the parents in and we're talking hospital.
I want to talk to you a little bit about, Doctor, the brain injury that the defendant suffered as a result of shooting himself. You've described this as, I think at some point you said it obliterated his frontal lobe.
It messed it up bad. I mean, it's not a term of art, but it was a brain injury that they were not optimistic he would survive.
Right. And you were shocked that he did, frankly, right?
I was a little surprised. Yes. Certainly surprised he woke up.
Okay. The part of his brain that is damaged controls what?
Generally speaking, prefrontal cortex, it's emotional regulation, impulse control, stimulus discrimination, affect and emotional formation. And by stimulus discrimination, it's that, I think I tried to describe it earlier.
Cameras.
Make sense of stuff. And so it's sort of, if you put all those things together, you can see how that really impacts your personality in a way. And so it's sort of the human part of our brain. The rest of our brain more focuses on biologic functions, sensory perception, feeling things, seeing things, hearing things. But the frontal lobe helps put all of that stuff together and then it sort of filters it and makes us who we are.
Controls all your emotions.
It does.
Right, like your anger, your impulsive control.
Right. Not entirely just that, but yes, it's a major component of that. Yes.
And when that is damaged, it's not as though the brain grows back.
It does not grow back, but this idea of plasticity in these kinds of injuries, especially among young people, is amazing. The brain does not grow back, but clearly he's regained some function.
Right. But I think you said in various different ways, he's never going to be the person that he would have been because of this injury, correct?
I do agree with that, yes.
And
maybe that doesn't necessarily make him a lesser person, but a different person.
A different person.
Yes.
With different concerns and different issues health-wise, fair?
Well, that will always be the case, yes, because of that. Yeah.
And so the fact that there was this irreparable damage to his brain and the frontal cortex will also cause there to be a difference or him to have difficulties in regulating those things that a otherwise healthy person with a healthy brain would be able to do?
That's an excellent question. It can. It doesn't appear that it has, but it can. And so, well, because during the years that he's been in custody, he hasn't had problems, maybe I misunderstood correctly, regulating his behavior in custody, because he has no behavioral problems in custody. Now, it's a controlled environment, obviously, but absolutely you're correct. People with those kinds of injuries can have what we call behavioral disturbances associated with their neurocognitive disorder. He has not exhibited that, but they can.
And if he gets out of a controlled environment, that might become an issue for him.
It's possible, yes.
And it's not as though that's a portion of his brain, again, that's going to come back and be 100% ever.
That is true.
You talked a little bit about, maybe I should have. Well, I'll ask you this: you asked about the gestures. You were asked about the gestures in the hospital.
Oh, was that?
Yeah, and there was some talk about him pointing a gun and his finger guns at the hospital. And you said, oh, that makes sense that he wouldn't be able to regulate those immediately after this, and that someone might act out of character because of the brain injury.
Oh, I do remember talking about that. I just don't remember about that specific act. But yeah, especially in the very acute phase, people say and do things that was disinhibited, very disinhibited. And he also was encephalopathic. So
when you say disinhibited, what does that mean?
Oh, poor impulse control, just acting on impulse, saying and doing things that you might otherwise gate yourself and not do. In encephalopathy, I can give you all kinds of examples of folks that just get very agitated and really just inappropriate the way they are.
The poor impulse control is part of the problem with having a TBI to the frontal portion of your brain, correct?
Yeah, oh yeah. But I would say that in his case, part of that recovery is, as Dr. Sedlak has noted, is that his executive functioning actually has improved to some extent. And so the impulsivity, if it was at that degree bad that what we're just describing in the detention center, I suspect there's a high likelihood that he would be having more behavioral problems there.
But when you say that his executive function has improved, he's still not back to the level that he was pre-morbidity, correct?
That's my assessment, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so 3 years after this event, he's still not back to 18-year-old Austin. His executive function is not back to what 15-year-old Austin's would have been.
Boy, that's a specific question. Probably not.
Okay.
Probably not. It would have been really useful to be able to do a detailed assessment of him pre-injury, but to that extent, right? But that is a reasonable theory.
Okay. I want to talk to you a little bit about this idea of confabulation.
Oh, yes.
And the idea that you had concerns about that. Now, I think you even said, it's fair to say, you can't say that's what's happening here.
Correct. I have a way of saying in there that only a psychiatrist cannot get in the actual head of someone to ascertain, right, what their emotional and cognitive conditioning is. So while I find that there are risk factors for it, I'm not saying this with absolute certainty that that's what's occurred.
Right, and that's the idea of us talking about him conflating information that he has learned since as a memory.
Right. I don't know if conflate is the word, but it's sort of like the void gets filled in by things he learns that likely occurred or did occur, and over time it just becomes, oh yeah, that's my memory. I remember that.
Well, one thing that might work against that idea would be if you're providing information or details about things that were not known before by other people. Fair?
Oh, I think that's true, yeah.
Okay. And you talk at length about his inability to give you details of the event, at least initially.
Well, I didn't see him initially. It was other people that were saying that, right?
Okay.
So I saw him. It was a while longer, and he's given me a fairly consistent story on the occasions I've seen him.
Well, when you talked to him, what did he tell you happened that day?
Oh goodness! Well, did I not outline it in the report? So he said. Well, he said. Let me say this. He said universally, I don't know why I did it. I do not know why I did it. But he did describe getting the gun. He did describe walking in there and shooting James, and then subsequently moving him and stabbing him, and getting the materials together and leaving. He didn't remember much about once he got to the Greenway area. He didn't really remember much of that. He did say, as we've talked about, that he shot himself to avoid going to jail. But what's really so he described the events in some detail, right? While at the same time saying, "But I don't know why," right? Could he really know why? Yeah. Don't know why he wouldn't be saying it. He wanted to plead guilty. He wanted to bring closure to this.
Could a reason why be because this judge has to decide what his sentence is, and if the reason why is really bad and he does remember it, that might work against him in sentencing?
Oh, sure. And I would say this, that if there was a really bad reason, I think we would have seen it. I think. Now, again, and I'm basing that on the phenomenology of mass homicide events that occur. Well, they all occur for bad reasons. None of them occur for good reasons. And so if there was one of those sort of recognized reasons, whether he was holding back or not, typically we already see the evidence of it. Right? We can figure it out anyway. So often we figure it out when they're dead.
Right, but you don't know, right?
Not with certainty. You're right. Absolutely. I am the first to concede that as a psychiatrist, I don't know that there's going to ever be anything other than death and taxes that I will be able to tell this court with 100% certainty.
Okay. If you will, walk us through a little bit more in detail about what he told you happened.
So, sure. So when I first saw him, it's a little disjointed because he said that they came home from school that day. It was an average day. He said he felt fine. He then noted that he was being very digressive. He talked about driving to school that day and then coming home. They come home do their chores and take turns playing the video games. And he says he didn't have any homework that day. And he said, I don't know why I got the gun and shot him. He says, I didn't feel it. I don't remember what I was thinking. He was on the TV playing the PlayStation, and I shot him in the back of the head. He didn't die. I dragged him into the master bathroom and stabbed him. Took him so that farthest away from where my parents would come in. Stabbed him in the neck.
Well, let me stop you there, and then we'll go back to that.
Uh-huh.
That part about I took him to the farthest portion of the bathroom, or the farthest portion of the home, the bathroom from where my parents would come in.
Mm-hmm.
Would it surprise you that reason is nowhere in the discovery?
Oh, yeah, I haven't seen it in the discovery either. Yeah.
Right, and so that's a fact that he's giving you that nobody would have had but him, right?
Oh, right. So let me just say this. I don't want you to infer that by dissociation somebody's unconscious.
I'm talking about this.
It's like remembering a dream.
I'm talking about this idea that he doesn't have a memory, but these are facts that we've implanted in him by his review of the discovery.
Well, so got to remember, for months following this, he didn't have any of this memory. And so he's building memory.
Right, but so that portion is not in discovery.
Oh, right? I'm not contesting that. That's fine. I see what you're saying. So the point being is that when you go from no memory for literally months, right, even Dr. Hurt mentioned this, to building an increasingly sort of detailed, if not accurate, recall, that is a perfect situation in which provoked confabulation occurs. That memories that are his, though, can be interspersed with memories that are not his, right? And so it's another one of those million shades of gray that I know issues in courtrooms.
So we think that, so in your opinion, there's a chance that he remembers why he drug him to the bathroom, but he doesn't remember shooting him in the head or doing anything.
No. He didn't remember either of those things initially. And for example,
I'm talking about right then when he's talking to you and says, I drug him from the living room to the bathroom.
could that have been confabulated? You
Right.
mean? Oh yeah.
With what?
But no. Provoked confabulation and confabulation there's two forms of this. So the provoked confabulation is when they're provided information.
Okay.
Unprovoked is a spontaneous sort of putting those pieces together in a way that makes sense, right? You're getting way beyond the opinions I'm giving, though, right? All I'm saying is he went from no memories to increasing memories over a period of months, which is highly suspicious. That doesn't mean that when he said, he gave the reason, I shot myself to avoid going to prison, when he didn't really remember shooting himself for a while. So I'm not saying that what he said isn't true. I'm not saying that some of it couldn't be truly held recall. What I'm saying is that with some uncertainty is that there are indicators that these memories, he didn't have them at first. So the question then becomes, how did he suddenly build memories that didn't exist earlier? So it could be some of one and some of the other.
Or he could have that memory and just decided to share it now.
In the realm of possibilities, yes, that's true.
What else did he tell you happened after he drug him to the bathroom?
He says he wrote a letter. I don't remember what was in the letter. Okay, that's interesting. So this interview, he says he doesn't remember what's in the letter. Then on the subsequent interview, he says, I remember writing the letter, and he was aware of what was in the letter, but he doesn't know why he would have written what was in the letter. But nonetheless, so there's an evolution occurring. I guess I want him to die, but I don't know why. Some of this is not related to the event, so I'm trying to get to it. Then he talked about going and getting the materials that he left the house with and changing clothes because he was going to go hide in the woods. Then he went and he talks about which guns and ammunition he took with him. He was planning to go to the woods.
Did he say what he was planning to do when he got in the woods?
Hide. Wish I understood why I shot him, James. No idea why. I just did it. There's not a reason. So then he leaves the house, goes down the street, and he says, shot someone 3 times. So I shot because they saw me with a gun to stop them from calling, but it was loud. That would cause people. Some of it just is notes that don't make much sense. But he does say that I shot those people.
Well, I want to go back to what you just said, because that's something that we didn't have in any of the discovery, right? Why did he shoot those people in the street?
Well, the why couldn't be in the discovery. Couldn't possibly be.
So why did he tell you?
He's saying, he knows he did it now. So you got to remember, we're going back to a period of time where he didn't know
Doctor,
he did it.
I'm asking you a very specific question. You just said that he said why he shot the person on the street. Why did he tell you he shot the person on the street?
So that they couldn't call the police on him.
Okay. And did he go on from there and say what he did next?
Basically the same. I can
said
read
it
the whole
was
thing.
loud. What was the part about it being loud?
Something about that they would have heard it. Got on the fairway very near the house, cut through houses, saw a guy in the car, saw a gun in the car, saw me, shot him. I think her.
So he says he saw a gun in the car?
That's what he said. Yeah.
Okay.
So did not report me.
So he shot him so he wouldn't report him as well?
Yeah. There was a lady, shot her 2 or 3 times. Then it says the only female was the victim in the car. Crossed the bridge to the wooden rail around that. There was a trailer park. Saw a helicopter. Dad called him. Trailer park. He said he didn't remember as much when he got to the Greenway. So it kind of skips to him being in the shed. Is it shed? It goes through the thick woods. After I shot myself, he says there was nothing else to do. I shot myself. Nobody knew why I was in there. After I shot myself, they returned fire at me and came in with a robot after 2 hours. He clearly doesn't remember. That's not something he remembers. He doesn't.
How do you know that?
Because he had just blown the front of his brain off, and I saw the video of him on. He didn't. But he
In
knows.
your opinion, he did.
In my opinion, he didn't, and it's probably fairly accurate, I guess. I don't know how long it took for them to come in. Anyway, so he doesn't really remember anything after that until he was in the hospital.
I want to talk to you a little bit, Doctor, about minocycline
Sure.
and the defendant's ingestion of that. You, unprompted on several occasions, talked about how rare that reaction is, right?
It's rare. Yes.
In fact, when you read some of the studies about all of this, isn't it also true that, even contrary to what you said on your direct examination, that the onset of that depersonalization or disassociation happens relatively quickly in all of those studies?
Well, you're normally not on the medicine that long. But
I mean, within 2 days.
Oh yeah, no. It can. I think I said it can happen early, middle, or late treatment. It can happen anytime.
I'm saying, though, in the literature on it, is it not true that the onset in those that have been studied is very quick?
Depersonalization.
As a result of that medicine, minocycline.
That is potential. I'm not disagreeing with that. I just don't remember that. But I do know. But I'm going to say early, middle, or late is still rare.
Very rare, right?
It's I discounted it initially.
Right.
Yep.
You discounted it until you looked at it and decided that he was acting in a different way than he normally would have acted, based on your research and how he was moving.
Different than he would act, and different than the behavior in the cohort of mass homicides that I've been involved in.
Right. But I want to focus on the defendant.
Okay.
Some of the big things that you focused on for why it could be this dissociation and depersonalization is the way he was moving.
I would say that at the times he was moving in a manner that other people thought was unusual. His appearance was unusual, kind of more calm.
Did you talk to any of those people?
Just their interviews, I guess. I did not talk to them.
Okay. And so you didn't ask them what they meant by he was walking like a zombie, or he was walking nonchalantly, right?
Admittedly, yeah, I didn't. I inferred a meaning for zombie, eerie, and trance. This is the first mass homicide case where I've seen witnesses to the offense occurring describe individuals in that fashion.
Well, did you see Dr. Gibson's testimony?
I did not.
Okay. Would it surprise you then that she, who is an expert in this field and was tendered as an expert in this field, said it's very, very common that they are described as walking that way?
No, I would say calmly and nonchalantly, perhaps. Zombie, and that's a very different description of somebody, right?
But you don't know what they meant by walking like a zombie, do you?
Well, no, I didn't ask. No, you're right. I didn't talk to them.
Wouldn't that be very important to know what they meant so that you can ascribe the correct definition if you're going to make a scientific...
Well, we can look it up if you want zombie, but yeah, we can look it up. And I've got a working knowledge of what is meant by that. But yeah, sure, more information is always better. If by zombie they mean not zombie, then fine, right?
Or that they were walking like somebody in a scary movie?
Yeah, which
such as a zombie?
Mass homicide, but that is not... Yes, if they're walking like a zombie or in a scary movie, I would be very interested in that.
Well, I mean... You said, doctor, that words matter, right?
And zombie has a definition. And mass homicide victims don't actually walk around like zombies in horror movies, sir. They just don't.
But you don't know what that person meant when they said zombie because you didn't take the time to ask them.
You're absolutely right. By zombie, they may have meant not zombie. That is true. By eerie, they may have meant not eerie. They may have meant all those weird terms they use. They may have misused the word. All things are possible.
Let me ask this, doctor, and we're getting a little into the weeds on this, but I think it's important. You watch zombie movies?
I have. It's not my favorite.
Okay. Are you aware that there are multiple different kinds of zombies in movies?
Yes, I'm certainly
Some
aware.
are fast walking, some are slow walking, right?
Yeah.
Some can open a door, some can't open a door, right?
Yes, sir.
So there's not a definition of zombie. There's what you thought they meant by zombie.
And any of those would be noteworthy to me. Any of the definitions you just described are atypical.
Right, but I guess my point...
Now, if your expert thinks that walking like a zombie in any of the ways you just described is normal in mass homicides, then I would disagree with her. She didn't say that.
Right.
Okay? I've read her research. That she didn't say that. You're saying that.
What I'm saying, doctor, is you didn't take the time to find out what the person who said zombie meant by zombie, correct?
You are correct. I inferred what the meaning of zombie was. And eerie and trance.
You assumed what they meant, right?
Well, I mean, it has a meaning. There is a meaning in the book, right? It has meaning.
You said that person, I think at some point, or I don't know if you said that person, but at some point you talked about there being this lack of emotion and that he was calm. Right?
He was at times very calm. Well, I mean, when he was talking to that person saying there's an active shooter carrying a gun, he was reasonably calm.
Right. And what he was saying, if he knew what he was doing, would be arguably pointing somebody and obfuscating his actions and putting it on someone behind him so that he could continue to get away.
Well,
right?
possibly, although it's kind of odd that he's, carrying a gun while he's saying that. But all things are possible. Yeah, sure.
The gun's in the woods, dressed as a hunter.
In the Headingham area? Okay, sure. All things are possible.
The trailer park's not in Headingham, though, fair?
I don't think it's a hunting area, but nonetheless, all things are possible.
Okay. Did you hear the testimony of one of the individuals in the courtroom when they were talking about him pointing the gun at Austin pointing the gun at him?
No, I've not been here except for today. I've not heard no other testimony.
And he said that Austin had emotion in his face when he pointed the gun at him?
I don't discount that.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know what emotion it was, but I don't discount that. If he said it, he said it.
And that would be helpful information for you to know if you're going to make this sort of...
All information is better, especially if it's accurate.
So this medication that you talked about, the minocycline, what percentage of patients does that appear in?
So there's no numbers. From the research I got, it was infinitesimally small. I can't give you a good, accurate number. The one study I saw was a series of like 167 people, but it was extremely small, and I can't give you the numbers. I can't remember.
Do you know how many people that drug is prescribed to?
Hundreds of thousands. It's commonly used. I mean, other pharmacology folks would know perhaps better than I do, but it's commonly used, and I don't know how else to say rare other than rare. Rare means rare. Got it?
That's fair. You kept talking about Ambien. We're not talking about Ambien, correct?
You absolutely correct. The only reason I even use that as an example is because most people do know it, because it has a much higher incidence of that, and it's been described a lot in the public press. So,
but those are completely different drugs, correct?
Yes. The reaction we're talking about is not different, but they are completely different classes of drugs with completely different purposes and side effect profiles. And
completely different percentage of people that suffer that side effect.
Yeah, Ambien, it's in the last research I saw, and it was about 5% will have some disruption of consciousness with it, sort of in a dissociative phenomenon.
I think you described them as doing something, just not doing it well.
Yeah, doing something, but not typical for them. It's hard to describe what it's like when somebody's, you've heard the saying, the lights are on but nobody's home. They're doing things. It has purpose. It can be organized. It can have really bizarre elements to it. But they're awake, right? They look awake. But they're just not quite all the way there in terms of understanding the reality of their situation. And so sometimes that disruption will peek through, like I might have used the example of the guy that poured the drink through his hand. So he did everything right except for picking the glass up.
in that minuscule number of people that have had this side effect, how many of those people reported doing anything violent?
I've not read any case reports of that occurring. And similarly with Ambien, thankfully, even though it happens a lot more, violence occurring in this state of dissociation with Ambien is also very uncommon. Amongst that group, they're mostly a danger to themselves. Very few hurt people.
And so you cannot point us to a single person that has, in the literature or in any of the studies that where we know that was a side effect of minocycline that committed any act of violence, can you?
Right. The first part we can say. The second part, I have not ever seen a study where it was confirmed that there was a minocycline reaction and that it was the proximate cause of some felony.
So the percentage of that we know is 0.
Well, I don't know that. I just don't know of any cases. So, but it could be. Yeah.
Mr. Latour, we're going to take a 15-minute recess. We'll resume at 10 minutes past 4.
Yes, Your Honor.
Superior Court being recessed.
The defendant, the effect of the brain injury and the TBI and damage to the frontal lobe, I think it's now categorized as what, a mild
Neurocognitive disorder.
Neurocognitive disorder. And you talked about the effects of that and that there's this idea that the outward may not be the same as what is happening inside.
Oh, affectively, yes.
Right. I think you pointed out several times that maybe the defendant's laughing at an inappropriate time or smiling or doing something like that, but that may not be how he feels inside.
The humor seems to be very preserved, but I think aside from that, yeah, his outward, you can't, it would be easy to misinterpret his affect as representative of his actual emotional reaction to the circumstances. Because one of the things that frontal lobes influence is actually emotional and affect expression.
So hard to get a read on it.
It can be, yeah.
It doesn't mean that he no longer suffers the range of emotions, correct?
Oh no, I think he is an emotional being. It's different now, though, right? The part of the brain that sort of modulates that is mostly not working correctly, and so it's not normal. It's not gone, but it's changed, right? It's not as easily interpretable as it might be in other similarly situated folks with intact frontal lobe functioning. It's almost like he's always in a good mood when you talk, when you interact with him. Very agreeable.
At least outwardly?
Well, but the things he says, he doesn't want to be a bother to people. He wanted to plead guilty to put this to rest for the families. He, I think, enjoys the interaction with folks. I think others other than me have noted that humor and laughing seems to be a preserved affect for him. But when you talk to him about these difficult things, there are other mechanisms by which you can see his distress, his body posturing. He'll start shaking. He will use words to say that, you know, he feels horrible about what he did. And to be quite honest, I think he wishes he understood what he says. I wish I knew why. So I went off your question, I think. Sorry.
Yeah. So he could be angry still, correct?
I think so, sure. Yeah.
You may not see that he's angry, but he could be angry. He could be happy and you not see that he's happy.
It wouldn't be this, it wouldn't express the same way, right?
And you talked a little bit there about remorse, and I want to talk about a couple things. In your review of some of the documents that Zach Rouse interviewed the defendant and provided to you, he talks a little bit about his current state of mind, correct?
He did. I think that was before I saw him, but yes.
Right. But you reviewed all of these things.
Yeah, I can't remember it. I've got to pull it from my notes if we need to talk about it. But yeah, I did review it.
At some point, the defendant was asked if he misses his brother. Is that right?
That is correct.
And he just paused and said, "Not really,"
That is correct.
and says that he focuses on his current daily life.
That,
Right.
That was, I do remember that, yes.
You talked about him being a different person than he was then because of the brain injury. What about his interests? Are his interests changed?
He seems to be a little interested in everything, to be quite honest with you. So I don't know that I would say that it's changed much, but when you talk, I almost wish you could just sit and talk with him. Because if you ask any question about anything, you are going to have a very long discussion about a lot of topics, one of which might be the question. And he has the actual about the question that you asked. So he had what I would describe him as is an innately inquisitive and curious person who just does like to talk about sort of the details and the sort of nuanced, intricate details of various topics and things of that nature. So I don't know that his interests are different, but what I will say is that the person I examined is just interested in a little bit of everything.
When he was asked about the firearms that were inside the residence by Zach, he was able to give a very detailed explanation about each of those firearms, wasn't he?
He still can talk to you about firearms. He had training and experience with firearms, and I think he still can.
And he was able to tell, there were 10 guns and walks through each of them, wasn't he?
I think so, yes. Yes.
He said at first there were 9 guns, then he counted them again, and there were 10. Does that sound
That
accurate?
sounds like something he would do, actually,
Yeah.
yes.
And then he went on through and listed the ones that he remembered, correct?
Correct. You're still talking about Zach, not...
Yes.
Okay,
yeah, not with you, but
Okay.
the things that you relied upon.
Yeah,
He said that there was a 12 gauge that Alan's grandfather had given him, right?
that is correct.
Said that there was James had a 12 gauge, correct?
Yes.
And another 12 gauge that was bought in September for Austin for Christmas, right?
The details I don't recall, but this sounds very familiar to me,
He
yes.
said that there was a 6 Sauer P22 that was a 9mm, correct?
Yes.
He was able to walk through and talk about the process for purchasing firearms and how old you need to be and the rules and regulations that circle around those things, correct?
Yep, that is definitely a subject that one of many that he has detailed sort of knowledge of, in a sense.
He talked about an integrated suppressed pistol. Do you remember that in the notes?
I don't specifically remember that, but I would venture to assume that he knows what that is, yes.
He said an integrated suppressed pistol. Austin isn't sure what caliber of bullets it used, and said, quote, he had shot it before and asked about the suppressor part. He seemed confused and explained what a suppressor meant. Does this ring a bell?
It's ringing a bell now, yeah.
And says that it's quieter, and it explains how it takes the gases that are used in a firearm and makes them quieter. Is that right?
I mean, that's accurate. And yes, that's correct, yes.
Okay. He goes on to talk about a bolt action 22 and says that's the worst gun. You couldn't hit anything within 5 feet with it, right?
It's kind of ringing the bell as you're telling me this, yeah.
And then he goes on to talk about and list the guns that he used in the murders, right?
He did.
And says that he had a Sears Model 212 gauge pump action shotgun and a Smith & Wesson M&P Shield 9mm. That it was, quote, the first pistol he ever shot. Right? Does that ring a bell?
Somewhat.
When asked about the searches on his computer, he said that he didn't remember doing any of those either, right?
Did he say that to Zach? If he did, he did it. I don't remember it.
Well,
So, I mean, he told me that, though.
He told you that he didn't remember doing any
For the
of these
most
searches?
for the most part, does not and doesn't. Yes, for the most part, that is true. Does not recall doing those.
And when we talk about these searches, are we talking about the kind of more salacious searches that we're
No,
talking
he didn't
about?
remember other stuff either. That just because there were categories we were looking at, and there's just a bunch of stuff. So not just that.
Okay. Do you remember that he told Zach Rouse in, let me see what date this is, just so I can, on an interview listed as March the 4th of 2024, says that he tells Austin that he has seen some of the discovery that shows they come through his phone and search history and found a bunch of search history going back months related to shootings. And Austin asked him what that meant. And he tells him that they found searches related to police codes, other mass searches from earlier in the other mass shootings from earlier in the year to include Buffalo and Uvalde.
That's correct. Yeah, I found my notes. So yeah, this is the 24, 24,
I
maybe
believe so.
21 something. But I got it. Yeah.
And he says that searches about school shootings and other things like that, and he says he doesn't remember or know anything about that. Asked him if he remembered making the searches, and he said no.
That's correct.
Okay.
Mr. Latour, what exhibit are you referring to when you're reading that, or is it an exhibit?
It is not an exhibit.
All right, thank you.
I'm going to show you what I'm marking for identification purposes as State's Exhibit 27. Is that the report that we were just referring to?
It is. It's the interview completed by Zach Rawls on March 4, 2024.
Okay. And in that, I think it's on the 4th page is what we were just talking about, the
Correct.
Search history.
Yes, sir.
And on the 3rd page of that is the 3rd, and carrying over into the 4th page of that is the gun discussion.
That is correct.
All right. The state would move to admit State's Exhibit 27.
Any objection? No, that's allowed.
Now, you talked a lot about Austin sharing information, and sometimes more than you may want. Fair? As far as being talkative.
Yeah, so he didn't have much gate between what he's thinking about and says, which is sort of frontal, and so he talks a lot.
At some point, do you recall Austin talking to Zach Rouse and maybe to yourself about hearing gunshots from the facility that he was in?
From the jail? I don't remember that.
Don't?
No,
Okay.
I don't.
I'll show you State's Exhibit 28. Is this one of those reports that you reviewed that belong to Mr. Rouse?
Let me make sure. This September 29 of 22. Right, I've got it.
Which that date wouldn't make sense, correct?
No, it does not.
Because that would predate this event, correct?
Yeah, that's not it. So, yeah.
Okay. But nonetheless, I would. Does that appear to be an accurate copy of that report?
Oh, I believe it. I mean, I haven't read the whole thing, but it is. And I have some notes of it, just not about him hearing gunshots. So I have reviewed it, though.
Your Honor, the State would move to introduce State's Exhibit 28.
Any objection? No objection. That's allowed.
I'll point your attention to the first page under current life and that first full paragraph. Can you review that and read it to the court?
First paragraph of the current life says, we discussed that the detention center is located right next to the Coliseum. Austin tells me he heard music from a show at the Coliseum one time. He can also hear gunshots from the law enforcement shooting range. I do remember this now. That is located right next to the facility. Austin tells me that they must spend a whole lot on ammunition when they use the shooting range. He says that for 223 or 516 bullets cost $1 each. These are the bullets that an AR-15 shoots. Austin tells me that one magazine is 30 rounds.
And on the second page of that, in the second full paragraph, he discusses his parents' separation, correct?
Say it starting.
Second full paragraph on the second page? The first full paragraph on the second page, I'm sorry, just above hunting.
Oh, okay. I tell Austin I've met both of his parents since my last visit. He asks where I met them, and I tell him I met his dad at their house, and I met his mom near her work. Austin knows that they have separated, but he doesn't know where his mom lives. I tell him I don't either. Austin's parents are still visiting him. They visit together. The facility gave his dad an exception to the policy to let him visit on Sundays.
Now, that you and I discussed this issue of the separation in the family?
I don't think.
Okay. Is that an issue that can sometimes cause concern for young children?
Oh, sure. Absolutely. Yeah.
Can be a traumatic or precipitating event for them in their lives?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's usually not, but it can be.
Right. I mean, that can be something that has a very significant emotional toll on a family.
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
Whether they tell you that it does or not, right?
They can say that it does not, and it can be big deal. Sure.
Were you made aware that just before this event that the paperwork had been filed for the separation?
Yeah, I don't know when I became aware of it, but I'm aware of the. I mean, to say that, yes, I was aware of it. Yeah, they're an intact-ish family, if you know what I'm saying. But yeah, I was aware of it.
Okay. We've talked a lot about the larger note that was left, that Austin left for everybody. We have not discussed that second note that he left.
Correct.
That note seemed to be a warning to his parents or whomever he believed would find his brother's dead body, correct?
That is correct.
And he left it right outside the room where that person had been killed.
Correct.
Which would be an appropriate location if you were attempting to warn somebody not to go in that room, right?
I agree.
And the content of that note is appropriate, correct?
It is.
Appropriate.
Well, given the circumstances.
Given the circumstances,
right.
It's appropriate. Was there anything about that note that you considered in your evaluation here?
No, I mean, I considered it because I reviewed it, but he left a casing on it. On my copy, there looks to be an evidence marker or a ruler on it, but maybe it was just there. But other than that, it says what it says. And, kind of fits with him saying that we've already talked about moving the body back there. So I think he didn't want his parents to find his brother. Which
would be a reasonable thing.
It would be, well, none of it's reasonable, but it would make sense.
Given the circumstances.
Yes. Yeah.
You talked about video games and violent television, I think, to some degree, and how that in and of itself is not I think you talked about there being some studies that alone is not a precipitating event for these sorts of things or for violence in general.
That is true. Yeah, I can detail that, but yeah, that's a nice summation.
Okay. It is also true, though, that kind of like we talked about with your report, what you put in affects what comes out, right?
Yes.
And so consuming violent content can have an effect on a person's mental state or the way they view violence, correct?
Yes.
Including to desensitize someone to violence.
I would say that makes sense to me, that the more you are exposed to, it's nice to be able to separate fantasy from reality, but the more you are exposed to sort of adverse stimuli like that, you become numb to it.
Right.
Yes.
And so when you become numb to that sort of thing, your reaction to it is atypical. It's not what a normal person may react to. Is not so desensitized.
I mean,
to it.
can that be the case? Yes, that's true. That can be the case.
And while I think you got into this causation correlation idea and saying that, well, just consuming it doesn't in and of itself create this predisposition to do this sort of thing. Fair?
Well, yeah. I'm just paraphrasing research on it, but yes.
Right. And I'm paraphrasing your paraphrase of this.
That's fine.
But if someone already has a predisposition to do something violent, consuming that sort of stuff and desensitizing yourself to those sorts of things can make it easier to take that next step.
So I tend to agree with you on that. The research is not as clear on that, right? So the research would suggest that if for people that have a lot of internalized anger, that another equally plausible theoretical approach to that is that if you give them a actually nonviolent way to express that hostility, to get it out, that can actually be protective. And there was one decent study that looked at this and said that these video gamers, that while they have more propensity to have like arguments with their family and scream at each other and stuff, that they were actually less likely to engage in overt violent acts than age-matched non-gamer controls. That being said, I concur with your line of reasoning. It's not as clear research-wise.
Right, but and I guess that research is, to be fair, it's kind of muddy, right?
It's a little muddy.
It's not clear itself. Right?
I will say that I agree with that, although I will say that the bulk of it has led the APA twice now to say, it's not sound to keep saying that video games cause violence. I'm big on less screen time. I think that it's true that there are problems associated with that. I'm not so sure that I can support an argument that it makes people kill people.
Right.
But,
and I don't think that I'm saying that a video game makes anyone kill anyone. What I'm asking and positing to you, though, is not limited to video games, but could include video games.
Oh, sure. Exposure to violence.
Exposure to violence. If you see in real life, you come from a broken home where there's domestic violence within the home, then you're more likely to go out and commit domestic violence.
You got it. Now, I would say that I think being raised in a war zone environment like that is different than role-playing fantasy. The concept is sound. I agree with that.
And I would include in that, and I'm asking you, if you're watching videos of real-world violence,
yeah,
and seeking that sort of thing out, like shootings or beheadings or any other type of video that may be, I think you talked about faces of death.
It's unhealthy.
It's not good for somebody's brain to consume that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I would agree with you to the extent that I would say it's unhealthy. Certainly to the degree it becomes a focus or a preoccupation is very unhealthy. And yet, at the same time, it's common. I mean, so common that it makes you question, why do humans have such a morbid curiosity about such things? And yet the internet traffic stats on these sites alone suggest that humans have an innate morbid curiosity about such things. And I don't think it's healthy.
And I think you have made it abundantly clear for the record that it is common. And I'm not arguing with you about its commonality.
Sure.
I'm arguing with you or discussing with you about its consumption. And to say that that in and of itself does not cause you to necessarily be violent.
Okay.
But again, if you have a predisposition to want to do something or to want to be violent, and you consume violent imagery, whether it be a video game, Faces of Death, or a website that we've talked about that
Sure.
has nothing but videos of people dying, and you're also searching out torture videos and things like that.
Correct.
That may be something that gets you over that initial barrier to desensitize you to a degree that you would behave in a different way.
So I would suggest, can it? Yeah, I think it can. It just doesn't seem to often. And again, some people have theorized that finding non-lethal outlets for lethal fascination or impulses is actually protective. But your theory, but what you say, I don't disagree with. I think it can and probably does happen.
I don't have any other questions at this time, Your Honor.